Okay, I realized that as I was going through the videos, it's a bunch of little minutia that I thought I'd go over just to start that, or it's just kind of assumed in the videos, and I realized that you probably need to know for first time baking. So I just wanted to go over what you need for baking. I wanted to go over things like substituting and temperatures and ingredients and all that kind of stuff, and just make sure that I kind of covered that first before we start anything. So I'm going to call this episode 0. So for baking, first thing to do is to start off with ingredients. Honestly, there's only really 3 things that you really need. One is a healthy active starter. I'll do another video about how to make one, or rehydrate one, but just assuming, or you can just get one from your local baker shop, but that's key. That's what the basis of all this is. Second is a high protein flour. I use King Arthur bread flour. You can substitute that for, you can even use all-purpose flour if you wanted to, but the higher the protein content, the more structure you're going to get in your bread, and just the more richness you'll get in your sourdough. So I recommend a higher protein content. You can also use other types of flours like spelt and whole wheat and all that kind of stuff, but for this, it's just strictly as simple as possible right now, just basic sourdough, or basic white sourdough. You also need salt. So most recipes just call for like a sea salt or a rock salt, but I like the pink Himalayan. I just find it gives it a more robust flavor, and I've tried other salt before and it just didn't come out as nice as the product. So I stick with the pink Himalayan. I just buy it in bulk off of Amazon. It's like $9 for a bag like that, and so that's all you really need. One additional thing that I picked up based on a recommendation from my neighbor is rice flour. I use that for just dusting the tops of it to stop it from sticking, and I also for dusting my, what are they called?
Bannetons.
Bannetons. Lost it there for a minute. Over the bannetons. Oh, so yeah, so we'll get to that next. So anyways, those are the ingredients you need. You can really, depending on what's available in your grocery store, you can swap it up for anything, but these are the ones I like. Next thing that you do need, just mixing the new stuff, I use a glass bowl. You can use any container you want. It doesn't have to be glass, it can be plastic, it can be metal, it can be whatever. I find a glass bowl is nice though because you can see the rise and you can tell when it doubles. Some people use like a square measuring bin when they're doing a lot of dough, so they can actually, it's got measured markers on it. I just like the glass because I find it's easy to stretch and fold in, to shape in, and to see. So that's what I use for that. Oh yeah, you need water. That's the other ingredient you need. Doesn't matter what kind of measuring cup you use for that. Okay, and then as far as for things that you need to make it with, the most important is a good scale. You want a good digital scale. Measuring flour, because flour can, if you're trying to do by cups, depending whether it's packed or not packed and what kind of flour it is and all that, it can change the recipe. So I always weigh my flour, and so I need the good digital scale for that. It's also for getting your baker ratios. You need bannetons. So there's multiple different sizes and shapes. Some have cloth, some don't. The important is the round ones will make a round loaf. You'll need a round Dutch oven to go with that. The oval ones will make an oval loaf, and you'll want an oval Dutch oven to go with it. When you get the bannetons, you're going to want to dust them in flour. So I use just a spray bottle, which I forgot to add to the thing here, and I'll spray it. And then I'll take this little shaker that I bought. You don't have to have these, but they come in really handy. They're really cheap, like a couple bucks off of Amazon. And I'll just dust these pretty liberally before and after use. So same with this one. You just give it a dust, and then it's good to go to use the rice flour. It helps not stick. So those are good. You'll need Dutch ovens. I have 2. I have this one we got from our gracious neighbor. And this one I think Heather brought up into the relationship, but it works really well. This one's fully ceramic, and this one is cast iron with ceramic coating. I find the cast iron, you'll get a better rise. I don't know if it's a temperature thing or keeping moisture in or what it does. This I won't get as good of a rise on the oval breads. I'll show you that in the video we reveal, but you get a really good rise on the cast iron one. So I recommend spending a few bucks on this. They have Lodge as a brand name if you're looking for cheap. Amazon, I've seen them for like 50 bucks-ish. You don't need to get Le Creuset or Staub or any of the expensive ones. You can go for cheaper, so get a good rise out of it. I've also seen fully seasoned cast iron ones, I think for like 15, 20 bucks on Amazon. So you can also get those if you want to go, if you're on a budget friendly. These are like $8, $9 each. You can get packs. Just look at the reviews, because some of them come with a really not nice cloth. So I think I have an example of that, but I think it's in the fridge right now. But so just make sure you read the reviews. The cloths are good. Talked about the shaker. Digital thermometer is good for testing the temperature, internal temperature of the bread. You want it at 200. I don't test it anymore because I just know the timing, but it's good to have, especially when you're first starting out. I use shower caps for covering my for covering the bread, whether they're in these or in the glass bowl. You can also use like a silicone cover or a tea towel. This here is like a bread lane. It's just a razor blade on a stick. It's for scoring your bread. You don't necessarily need this. You can use just a razor blade. You can use a knife. Some people cut it with scissors. It's all depends on you. But usually you can buy this with these as a kit. All right. Last two things that you need. One is a good cooling rack, or not a good cooling. You just need a cooling rack. Period. Dollar store.
Yeah, get this from the dollar store.
And then this is totally optional. I find that these bags. So because this bread doesn't have any preservatives in it, aside from like a little bit of salt that you put in, the bread will go stale in a few days. So especially if you leave it on the counter. Some people I talk to, they cover it in tin foil. Some people I talk to keep in the fridge or the freezer or however you want to do it. I find if you're counter storing your bread, putting in one of these, I think it's hemp bags, will make it last 3 to 4 days instead of like 1 to 2, which is really nice. So yeah, so that's it for materials. The other thing I wanted to talk about, one is water. So I wanted to come back to that. When you're using water, we use this Santevia countertop water filter. I like it because it's high alkaline water. It's like, I don't know, hipstery water, but it just has a really good product. And I've tried fridge water before, and the difference between the breads, a crazy difference in rise and taste and texture. So I think realistically, I don't know if the filtering matters so much as a temperature. So everything I've read says room temperature water when you're mixing your dough. So if you do have a fridge with a filter on it, make sure you pour the water like an hour or two before you're going to make your bread, and just let it come to room temperature. That's one thing I want to talk about. The other thing I want to talk about is rising temperature. So actually, let's talk about scheduling first, then we can talk about rising temperature. So because this process is a 24-hour process from start to finish, timing's key. So because I work from home, it makes it really easy. When I wake up, I feed my starter, I let it set for 3 to 5 hours, then I mix my bread. I do 2 hours where I need to be pretty attentive, where I'm every half an hour stretching and folding it. And then once those 2 hours are done, I let it sit for 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours, either countertop or outside. You want to keep it around 80 degrees if you can. You can put it in the stove with the light turned on to make it bulk rise faster. And then after that, you got to put it into the banneton, covered in the fridge, and that needs to be 8 to 10 hours. It can be as long as 24 hours. I even left it in the fridge for 48 hours, and the loaf has turned out beautiful. But it's basically that 2-step rise. Well, 3-step rise. Step 1 of the bulk rise, which is the stretch and fold, which takes about 2 hours. Step 2 of the bulk rise, where you just leave it covered in a warm, semi-warm environment for 3 to 5 hours, depending on temperature. And then the cold rise, or the cold ferment, I've heard it called, and that's 8 hours in the fridge. So you want to figure out your schedule around that. So some people might want to bulk rise at night, fridge in the morning, and just bulk rise in a little bit cooler of an environment. That might work for you. You have to play around with your schedule because it's 24 hours process, but it's a lot of waiting around. It's just timing. And then the other thing I was going to talk about was temperature. So depending on whether you want it faster or slower, you can speed up your bulk rise process by keeping it in a warmer environment. So if you have that oven with the light turned on, or even like a bread proofing box, or if it's warm outside, you can use those environmental advantages to speed up your bulk rise. And the fridge, you can do it. You can just put it, if you want bread and you only have like 4 hours, like you can honestly get away with a 4-hour cold ferment, but you probably want to live 8 to 10 hours is recommended. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So that's my forward. Welcome to our video series, and hope this helps you out.